Now, when you saw this grid within the military area that you were part of as part of these mind control projects, and this is a question that I have. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the people that were on these grids had, because my question is, do you think they were all military people, or in their surface lives, do you think some of them were police chiefs, ministers?
Oh, yeah.
Mayors, clergy, moms. I mean, what kind of surface world lives were the people that were on these grids living?
They all had a different designation, being a mom, or, like they are programmed down to the smallest little thing that you wouldn't even, for me, like, I wasn't in those governmental places all the time. Like, I wasn't in the Hollywood all the time, but I was taken there, and I was in those corporate rituals. They all come back, and, there's big programming, like huge programming, reprogramming. But I feel like that there was, like, every walk of life that you could fit in to accomplish the goal that they had for you. Now, my handlers, my programmers, my main programmers they had German accent. They were military. Mm-hmm. They didn't present that, of course, out in the open. You would think that they were just a Kentucky family. He was very involved. He did a lot of teaching on military bases and things like that locally. So, you really have your agenda for your area of the world. For me, like, Kentucky Derby was a huge thing. Trafficking, people know about the trafficking portion, but not so much about the programming and all the layering that they do there.
All right, so let's pick apart the Kentucky Derby. Mm-hmm. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Can we do that? Okay, so I really want to explore this with you, because there is in this country now a growing conversation around trafficking mm-hmm. and child trafficking. And it's coming out of the movies now, and the heroes, they're always rescuing the children that are caught up in the trafficking. But pretty much, you have this goon, bad guys, like really, Russian mafia or whatever, Mexican cartel. And it's like, okay, so we're going to paint a really, really binary picture where you have mm-hmm. bad guys that do bad things, and then you have the good guys that rescue the children, and that's your FBI, those are your police, that's, law enforcement, and the hero, which is, our favorite movie star, whatever it is. And mm-hmm. So now we're allowed to talk about trafficking and child trafficking, but you said layers. Mm-hmm. You said layers. So can you describe to me the layers that would happen at something like a Kentucky Derby, where we start off, maybe the top layer is people attend an event because they want to take their kids to a fun place, and then the trafficking happening underneath, and what's the dynamic?
Yeah, well, there is, there's an underground network. I mean, they, on the internet, they're able to do beyond what people even realize on the internet, where they can connect to people electronically wherever they're at and be able to cloak that. So really, as far as the layers for the Derby, like you said, there's the families that go there that have no idea what's going on. They're just there to watch, the horses race. And then you've got the normally it's girls that have maybe been taken, they were homeless or something like that, or they're in a bad home, and they took them for trafficking, and they bring them there to display them, to sell them to people from all over the world. And then you have another layer, which is normally extremely I mean, every time it's extremely hidden. It's in a location that you're not allowed to know. I was always blindfolded to take me there. Part of the programmers that I had that were, part of the Derby and in Lexington, the horse, all of that. They have remote locations that are really covered up by a demonic grid system to not allow any frequencies to get in there to be able to detect anything that's going on or that even anybody was there. It's very sophisticated. They have a lot more sophisticated electronics than what we realize. But so there's those varying levels. So for me, I was at a level to where completely programmed, completely mind control, and they are really, instead of sex, which is hideous, it was more of showing off a product of mind control. Like, is this working? Is this not working? Can we split her off into how many parts? And it was more of kind of picking apart the programming and them wanting to learn the different techniques of programming, of mind control. So that's kind of where they get their control and pride from what product they have.
Just so I got this straight, at a event like a Kentucky Derby, you have normal activity, just plain day people not suspecting anything. Then you have the underworld of human trafficking, and then you have another world of very evil people using sequestered locations where groomers and programmers take their slaves and exchange information, put their slaves through tests, and so it's like a convergence for handlers and their slaves.
Absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely. They take a lot of pride in how their programming holds up under torture and how you perform when they call out different parts of your mind through the dissociation that they forcefully have done. But yeah, it's really they have an extreme knowledge of how the brain works. Pretty much the 0 through 5 is all about manipulating your mind. Because they know how to do that. I mean, that's their goal, is to manipulate and control children's minds so they can do whatever they want to do without really ever being found out.
Can you describe the first time you recovered memories of the Kentucky Derby?
Well, all of my programming started to really break down. I was around 19, of course, they started taking me all over the world, trying to reprogram me in these Christian hospitals. But so I was taken to the Derby and to horse races a lot. There were one of my main programmers lived pretty much in walking distance to one of the tracks, and they had specific locations on their property where they would take us and do a lot of the programming and the torture and things like that, which it was under this disguise of a bed and breakfast kind of place with a gate and all of that.
So you were groomed, you were mind controlled, you were used. Now, did did your handlers slash owners also use you for the trafficking level?
Yes, absolutely. I got trafficked. You know, there's a lot of how they make their money as well. I got trafficked. They would normally, it was like in sections, like it was kind of like laid out, you know, this is when we're doing this and this is when we're doing this. But it always, when they do the trafficking, it always was to also incorporate the mind control, kind of as a robot, like how is she going to perform as really a robot. So it was a little bit different than, you know, what people understand about trafficking. And like you said, people think it's like overseas, and I'm not saying that it's not, because it definitely is. I mean, I was taken overseas, but it is very, very much people that look good, people that you would not have a second thought about, just think they're normal people, like a police officer or a judge or a teacher. You know, my programmers were teachers in the small Baptist church, and you know, it was going on in all of those places. So and, you know, it's funny because recently Tim Tebow was talking about, you know, like the number one trafficker is going to be more of a white Caucasian that is very well educated. And, you know, so it's starting to come out a little at a time, you know. My whole thing is, you know, I just had a reminder the other day. I saw Nathan Reynolds sharing some of the torture that he went through, and it hit me, you know. It's so important because it did something for my spirit, because there was specific torture that I had been through before that I'd never heard anybody else say they had been through that before. And it did something for me. It was so confirming. Like, it just really, it was like healing for me. And I remembered back when the Lord said, you know, I want you to put everything in your book. Like, don't leave anything out. Like, and I was like, I had a lot of people close to me, like, you can't do that. They're going to think you're crazy. And, you know, you can't put all that in there. And you were very encouraging. I appreciate that. But it reminded me how important it was that I did do that, because nobody's really, I shouldn't say nobody, you guys are fighting, and I just want more and more people to fight for the people that have really been labeled as crazy and, you know, psychotic and schizophrenic and all of those things, but you can't have all those people saying the same exact things and never met before, so...
Exactly. I mean, that's what I've been saying this whole time. And